our true nature, that's the very mature self, of course, can hold this little child in love and see the struggle and see the difficulties and see the pain. Because many times we have that tendency to be so harsh on ourselves, and especially if we're on the spiritual path or working psychologically, when we understand mentally all these concepts. I can see it with all my clients, then we become so hard with ourselves, and now again, and I couldn't do it, and we become so ambitious and want to do it right, and that is not the energy of healing. It's very interesting, it's very subtle, but it's this fine-tuning of mothering ourselves. When we talk about emotions, what directly pops up into my mind is the inner child work. It's a massive topic because emotional maturity or immaturity obviously so already contains that. Because why is somebody emotionally immature? Because that's a childish quality. As a child, we don't have to be emotionally mature, obviously. That is something, it's a part of really becoming an adult. Also not only physically, but of course also emotionally. So when we're emotionally immature, we're in a childish mode. And our brain is incredible because literally, we have parts in our brain that when triggered, we go into what we call regression. This is a word that comes from Latin, regressare. It means to go back. So where we go back mentally and emotionally to a younger age. And sometimes that can be 3 years, that can be 5 years, 8 years, 13, depending on the trigger. And we go back. Really, in the brain, we go back to that age and react like an 8-year-old version of myself or a 3-year-old version of myself. It's really, once you understand that concept, it's really fantastic to observe it also outside of ourselves. Obviously, suddenly you see adults reacting like children, but of course, what is more interesting for us to see it in ourselves. So really, when you start to observe yourself very closely, you can see when you're triggered and you're suddenly in a regressive moment and you're not your mature self. And it feels a little bit like there's no way out. You have a little bit of, there's no other option. You feel optionless. Because as a child, you don't have that maturity, so you don't have options. You don't have a choice. But as adults, we always have a choice. How do I deal with this situation? We can always take a breather and decide how to act or react. As a child, our nervous system, first of all, is not so developed, and second of all, we don't have that cognitive ability yet. And also people usually don't teach us. So we cannot really choose. So every time we get it's like a blank nearly. We're like blank, or we feel we have no option. It feels kind of closed up somehow. Like I know this feeling like that. That's when we are in a regression and we're simply reacting. Our partner relationships, love relationships are just amazing for this kind of work because our partners trigger us big time. So with our partners, really, when we're just reacting and just directly angry or directly something, that is often an indication that it's a regression is happening. So that is where inner child work comes in. So one of the parts, inner child work is a whole topic, but one of the parts is really like learning to hold ourselves. Like our mothers are not there anymore to hold us, and it's also not their tasks anymore because we're adults now and they are adults. So we really need to learn to take care of ourselves. And there's of course a direct link to self-love too, but it's really this mature self that we are, because we are already adults. And especially if we meditate, we know that our awareness, our true nature, that's the very mature self, of course, can hold this little child in love and see the struggle and see the difficulties and see the pain. Because many times we have that tendency to be so harsh on ourselves, and especially if we're on the spiritual path or working psychologically, when we understand mentally all these concepts. I can see it with all my clients, then we become so hard with ourselves. And now again, and I couldn't do it, and we become so ambitious and want to do it right, and that is not the energy of healing. It's very interesting, it's very subtle, but it's this fine-tuning of mothering ourselves. And of course, there's many techniques within inner child work, like taking a pillow, for example, a pillow that you take and that you see as your inner child, and that you start cuddling in those moments when you feel like you have no option, when anger or when fear or sadness is coming up, that you're really holding that inner child and saying, it's okay. Yes, it's okay to feel that fear. I am here with you. And you're holding yourself. And there's so many different exercises, but this is one that is very simple and so easy. But you can also just do this internally. When these difficult things are coming up and you feel there's no way out, and you feel there's no, life is just terrible, and you think it will last forever, just remember that you are also pure awareness, and that you can hold yourself and just be there for yourself. Like this ideal mother that we all longed for, and that maybe wasn't even there, but we can be that father.